Today on Locked On Rockies, the importance of the outfield cannot be overstated. Key players, must-have defense. The Rockies' success in 2023 is going to come down to how this outfield performs. We'll break it all down on today's episode of Locked On Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 8th day of March in the year 2023. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every single day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You are in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day is talk about the Colorado Rockies. And we've been doing this what's going on our third season now, gearing up for Rockies baseball in 2023. Today's episode of the Locked On Rockies podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more by visiting FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Today on the Locked On Rockies podcast, we are talking about the outfield, three critical positions for the Colorado Rockies in very different ways. Right field is going to be the land of basically opportunity for a lot of prospects, for someone like Randall Grichuk, and potentially even for one of the Rockies' top prospects, Zach Veen. Of course, left field is going to be home to Kris Bryant. Now, there's talks already of Kris Bryant potentially shifting over to right field, which might make a difference for the Rockies as well and how they approach things. And then center field. Is this the year that Jonathan Daza truly demonstrates, I shouldn't even say truly demonstrates, continues to demonstrate his ability to be a major league center fielder? These are critical positions for the Rockies, and there are critical players playing those positions, and it's headlined by Kris Bryant. The Rockies' success in 2023 will be dictated in large part by Kris Bryant's contributions to the team. He should be one of the biggest impacts on the team. He needs to be someone that goes in and adds depth and power into this lineup. I'm not expecting Kris Bryant to play an elite defense, and it concerns me when he calls Coors Field's left field a graveyard. However, that doesn't make me think that he can't handle it, and it doesn't make me, super worried. The work it takes on the body to play left field, especially in Coors Field in Colorado, is what concerns me. But I think Kris Bryant, as he even mentioned himself, is going to benefit greatly from being someone that has the normal offseason. He's also been now in Colorado a bit. I mean, he might not have played, but he's at least acclimated himself to being here and settling in to making it this is his spot and this is his home. The off the field, other than health stuff, there is nothing that should be preventing Kris Bryant from locking in and being a significant contributor to the Rockies outside of health concerns. There is nothing I can think of that should really make you doubt Kris Bryant outside of the health. I don't necessarily know what Kris Bryant is going to do, but if Kris Bryant hits 280 and he gets on base pretty consistently and he leaves the ball out of the yard, and if he flirts with 100 RBI this year, that is massive for the Colorado Rockies, and that's exactly what they need from him. He needs to be serviceable, if not good to great on defense. The Rockies cannot afford to have sloppy outfield defense. They cannot afford to have above or below average or even close to average outfield fielding. You're going to get eaten alive in some of the places that you play, and especially at home. We saw with the Rockies' sloppy defense last year how many times it bit them in the butt, especially a team that has usually, a pretty good history of stellar defense. And again, this is massive. I mean, Kris Bryant's importance to the Rockies is demonstrated to be huge. It is something that the Rockies simply, can't afford to miss out on. And it's time for Kris Bryant to be the leader, time for Kris Bryant to step up, and time for Kris Bryant to be someone the Rockies can bring to. So this is something here, because I do want to bring this up. This is something the Rockies are going to explore and could do here from with a move of Kris Bryant to right field. Let's go over to Paul Elliott, who writes for Purple Row. What moving Kris Bryant to right field means for the Rockies outfield. The Rockies have already gotten the injury bug early into the spring training with the unfortunate news of Lucas Gilbreth possibly needing Tommy John surgery, and Brendan Rodgers could miss the entire season with complications from a shoulder injury. The news of Rodgers being sidelined the entire 2023 campaign has led to speculation how the Rockies will now fill the hole at second base. And it's the Rockies once again moved to put McMahon there. I think second base is becoming more clear, but here let's fast forward a little bit here. In an article published by MLB's Thomas Harding, Kris Bryant has been getting more time and playing time in right field this spring training after spending all of his time in left field last season. Since 2020, Bryant has slowly increased playing in the outfield over his position at third base at the end of his run with the Cubs and the partial season with the Giants. Even with the injury to Rodgers, it appears the Rockies will be keeping Bryant in the outfield for now. Bryant has also said that he wants to stay in the outfield, and it would take a lot of work for him to re-gear at to play third base. With Bryant's additional playing time in the other corner outfield, what implications does this have? Let's see here. Let's see. Last season, the Rockies generally had Randall Grichuk and Charlie Blackmon platooning the right field position. With 102 and 52 games played there respectively, this season, Grichuk will start the season on the injured list. And let's see. I forgot it's a hernia. That's a tough one. I think, man, Grichuk's injury, I think we're going to have to watch that. That's going to be an interesting one. But if spring training games are any indication, Kris Bryant will be splitting time in both corner outfield positions, or at least until Grichuk returns. In his career, Bryant has played 189 games in left field and 109 games in right field, so he does have similar experience on the other side of the diamond in his career, making the interchangeability in the lineup a valuable asset. Let's see. Sam Bouchard can play both things. Jonathan Daza, of course, can play. He'll be there in center field, but some other options, because you should go read the piece. But Sean Bouchard, Michael Tolia, and Nolan Jones all can play right field, but they don't have a ton of experience, as Paul writes here. The other Paul for Purple Row. So it's going to be interesting what they do there. I think Bouchard has a good chance of if he continues to play like he did last year. So this split will be interesting. It will be interesting to see what the Rockies do for the corner positions, but they will have some options, and Kris Bryant will bounce around. Let's talk about the other positions, and let's focus a little bit more on center field, because we haven't talked a lot about Jonathan Daza, and as someone who I think we need to continue the conversation about is Jonathan Daza, and there's a good chance that he is, at least to my knowledge, going to be the opening day starter for center field. That's coming up here in segment number 2. But before we do that, got to tell you about our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook. FanDuel Sportsbook is where you can make every moment more. And right now, we got the prime time of the NBA season. If you want to bet on all the NBA action, the NHL action, or get ready for some baseball bets, the FanDuel Sportsbook is the place for you. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drains. You can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay from FanDuel. Don't miss on your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can find us wherever you find podcasts, and you can find us live on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel where we are recording our episodes live, and you can be part of the live chat and ask your questions and have them answered live here on the show. We're on the goal. We're on the path. We're striving to hit that 500 subscriber mark before the start of the season. So help us get there. Help us grow the show and subscribe to Locked On Rockies on YouTube today. Your second listen of the day can be the Locked On Fantasy Baseball Show, where you can learn how to win your league or stay up to date with all things Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, and Locked On Buffs podcasts available for you. So we kind of talked about how Kris Bryant is going to be the primary corner defender or corner outfielder for the Rockies. And I think with the injury to Grichuk, the Rockies will use right field, especially as a place to bring some people up and get some playing time and use some of these platoon guys as well. What about center field? Well, I think the Rockies are going to get another solid season from Jonathan Daza. There is no reason for us to doubt Jonathan Daza out at this moment. Jonathan Daza has flown under the radar, even for me on this offseason. Do we remember how good Jonathan Daza was last? I mean, Jonathan Daza isn't the most elite center fielder, but for contributing and performing for the Rockies last year, he was one of the better Rockies performers last year, and he plays a tough position. Someone that, again, a kind of a similar situation where the Rockies finally gave him an opportunity, and, a little bit of hesitation there. And since his issues in 19, he's only gotten better. He in last year, he batted .301, .349 OBP, a slugging of .384, and an OPS of .733. He left the yard 2 times. He was able to drive in 34 runs, 21 doubles, 112 hits. Jonathan Daza is a very, very solid piece for the Rockies. And if he's going to be someone that the Rockies are going to be able to consistently get on base, and like we talked about yesterday, be a little bit more aggressive with, Daza's going to be a nice dynamic threat. He is a potential. We were talking a lot about Rodgers, and we've talked a lot about Kris Bryant, but to sit here and say that Jonathan Daza doesn't have a chance to be an all-star for the Rockies, I think would be underselling what Jonathan Daza is capable of. I think Jonathan Daza, I think there's so many great outfielders, and I think there's so many great center fielders, especially in baseball, that a player like Jonathan Daza doesn't shine quite bright enough. But he gives you confidence in center field. He makes you feel better about center field, and he makes you feel confident in a guy that has gotten better in 2 back-to-back seasons. Now, a regression or something, I guess, could be part of it. That is possible, but he stayed pretty consistent to what he was in back-to-back seasons for the Rockies in both 21 and 2022. In 2021, he played in he played in 6 less games, but pretty similar numbers across the board: a .282 batting average, a .332 OBP, a slugging of .355, an OPS of .688. So, I mean, he got better with those 6 extra games in 2022. He improved with that and drew more walks. He struck out 2 fewer times as well, drove in 4 more. I mean, really the only thing you're hoping for if Jonathan Daza is if he could flirt with a little more power. That would be nice. I mean, but I was listening a lot. I was actually listening to Tim Kurchin on the Dan Le Batard show today, and I think we need to embrace and encourage a player like Jonathan Daza to be someone that just gets hits. Hey, poke it in a single. Start an inning off with a single. There is, and you make a great point there, Lux Ace. Get in the 0-2 count, and you're still the leadoff guy, and you fight one off, and you just line it into shallow center. Bam, boom. Single starts the inning off on after, instead of being a quick strikeout, you fire one off and you get on base, and then you have an option there at first. I don't think Jonathan Daza is necessarily the fastest, but I think Jonathan Daza at least has potential to move on the base paths. If he can cover ground and play center field at Coors Field, I think he can be a little more aggressive on the base paths. I think he has the ability to jump and get that quick speed in something like the Rockies need to be able to steal some bags. And let's see how many times he attempted. Let's see. Not a lot of stolen bases. In fact, he didn't steal a single base last year. So stealing bases and speed, like we said, not necessarily going to be Daza's strength. But it might have to be something that the Rockies have to encourage, and the Rockies need to look at. If you're going to be the leadoff guy, if you can get on base as much as Daza can, the Rockies got to be willing, I think, to at least get him in motion or be aggressive with something like hit and runs. I think the Rockies, like we talked about, hit and runs are something that they need to use as well. So, Jonathan Daza, I mean, there is everything is to be expected, as he is the starting center fielder for the Colorado Rockies. It's going to be I think his year to kind of again make a little bit of a statement. And I think he poses a nice dynamic threat at the leadoff position. The Rockies are in good hands with Jonathan Daza. There's nothing to be discouraged about. I am not worried about a Jonathan Daza performance, and we haven't seen Jonathan get banged up or anything yet. He has played over 100 games in back-to-back seasons. The health has been there. He's going to be someone that should fill in nicely and fill in that gaps. Now, I think there's a good point here, Rat King. It is definitely the speed of the Rockies outfield is a concern. The Rockies don't have true speedsters. And especially one thing why I'm encouraged about Kris Bryant playing right field is Kris Bryant's not the fastest guy. And there's less ground to cover over there. There's no one until Zach Veen comes into the picture, really, that I really think of as speed and covering ground as part of their game. And part of me wonders, are the Rockies going to try to go Veen in center just because of his abilities? And is that the right type of move? Interesting question from Lux Ace. What if we trade him, though? He certainly could be traded. Well, let's dive more into this here in segment number 3. Because if the Rockies, again, are in a situation where they are embracing letting the kids play, they're out of it. Could the Rockies move Jonathan Daza to open up center field to allow Zach Veen to play there? Or would they move someone else to put Zach Veen in the corners? Interesting question, and that could open the door and could signal the way. A Jonathan Daza trade, what do you know for sure? That signals it's Veen time in Colorado. Let's talk more about that here and a couple of and who Danielle Allentuck says is the starting outfield for the Colorado Rockies in one of her pieces coming up here next in segment number 3. Want to thank you for making Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We also stream our episodes live on YouTube, and you can be part of the live chat just like Lux Ace and Rat King are. Ask your questions, give your thoughts, fire off your Rocks hot takes, as we are getting one day closer to first pitch. But what about a month? I think now we're about a month away until opening day here at Coors Field, at least. Can't remember exactly. I think the season starts a little sooner than that. And per Rockies tradition, I'm sure they open on the road. There are a lot of things going on. I know I should know the schedule. I know that you all are probably sitting there like, you guys don't know. You don't know the exact day and team that they're playing. Off the top of my head at the moment, no. It's there's too many other things to focus on, like the outfield, the state of the outfield. I think the Rockies outfield will be average. I think the Rockies outfield has a high ceiling this year, though. I think the floor is a middle of the road to a below average team outfield, depending on if this team, but the ceiling is crazy. I mean, Jonathan Daza mixed with, if Kris Bryant plays at an elite level or a great level, he will be in line for comeback player of the year. And then again, Charlie Blackmon, Randall Grichuk, and some exciting prospects. What does Sean Bouchard do in right field for the Rockies? So we were talking a little bit there at the end of segment 2 that a trade for Jonathan Daza. It's again a move the Rockies could make. and they could make some other adjustments. And again, they would embrace, if you're trading Jonathan Daza, you're calling up Zach Veen. I think that's really the only way the Rockies are making that move when you look at some of the players that they have that they can move on the team. If you're willing to move on from Jonathan Daza, who can probably play you a solid right field as well. I mean, I don't think Jonathan Daza is forever a center fielder, but he can play a corner infield, probably, a corner outfield, no problem. I think he's got the capabilities to do so. But if you're trading someone like Jonathan Daza, you're trading one of your best outfielders, and you are signaling that you are going with someone else. Because trading Jonathan Daza doesn't necessarily free up a ton of room on the corners, unless you're going to also embrace the young guys playing center field. Are the Rockies going to turn to just young guys to play center field in Coors Field this year? I highly doubt it. I don't think they're just going to say, all right, but they might do it for the half the season. The Rockies making moves to bolster up and do things to beef up this current class of prospects, they have to actually do so. I will believe that they make moves at the trade deadline to do it. Nolan Jones. Again, Nolan Jones could be filling in all these places as well. He's got that utility. I wonder if they try Castro out in the outfield as well. There are places, but I think the only reason you trade Jonathan Daza this season is to make room for Zach Veen. And I don't even necessarily know you have to trade Jonathan Daza to make room for Zach Veen, when you can have Veen just play right and keep Daza in center field. All right, let's take a look at the opening day roster projection from Danielle Allentuck, Colorado Springs Gazette. I'm not going to read the whole projections because you have to go read there from the Gazette and see her predictions. But here are the outfield ones, at least. Outfielders: right field /DH Charlie Blackmon, left field Kris Bryant, Jonathan Daza, left field, right field Sean Bouchard, and left field, third baseman Nolan Jones. And Allentuck writes, Blackmon will designate hit more than he'll play in the field, but he still considers himself an outfielder at heart. Bryant could see some time in the opposite end of Coors this year, and Bouchard makes the team after a strong showing in the last month of the season. Michael Toglia and Brenton Doyle are also in contention for the final outfield spot, but they still have a lot of work to do with their bats, and some time in AAA can straighten it out. I agree, and she adds as well, Randall Grichuk expected to return in April, so not too bad, I guess, there. But so Grichuk will play a factor with that. I think out of those prospects and for the opening day roster, I think Bouchard does make more sense than Toglia and Doyle, especially when Toglia, I want him to work on that bat. I want him to make sure that he is a threat with the bat. That is a big part of, I think, what we need to lean on for Michael Tolia's a bat. So I think I'm going to agree with Allentuck's predictions there for the starting outfield there. I think you got Chuck, you got Nolan Jones, you got Sean Bouchard, you're going to have Daza, and you're going to have Kris Bryant. So I think, especially, of course, with that Grichuk injury, you'll see that more. And then, of course, you'll see some of those young guys go down. It's okay if some of these prospects start the season in AAA because they'll get more playing time there. It doesn't do them any good to sit at the start of the season and do nothing for the Rockies. So the outfield is okay. It's in a fine spot. I think the Rockies outfield, of course, can be better, but I think the Rockies could be in a much worse position as well. This is a team that, again, will do better if this outfield is able to hit their ceiling. But if they stick closer to their floor, they're going to be closer to the average, below average thing. But I really do think that we should be believing in some of these pieces. I think that Jonathan Daza has a bright 2023 ahead of him. There's no reason to doubt him yet. And there is Kris Bryant swinging the bat pretty well here. I mean, at least with some power so far. Jonathan Daza so far in spring, 286, 333, 357 average there in the spring. And it does have an RBI, a double, and a walk. I'd like to see him strike out less, but that'd be I want everyone to strike out less. That's a pretty obvious answer. But looks, that's what I'm saying. I think not a lot of people were thinking Jonathan Daza. And honestly, we didn't talk a lot about Jonathan Daza throughout the offseason, but he's been good. The numbers show it. He's been good. Again, not the elite defender, not the elite speed that we're hoping for in terms of elite center field play, but a 991 fielding percentage, so almost 1,000 fielding percentage there. In center field, he played over 600 innings in center field, only committing 2 errors in that time as well. So again, nothing flashy, but he's doing the job, and he's playing well on the other side of the base, or on the other side of the ball. Bryant and Daza, that's a good combo, and you use right field to your advantage. You let Bryant get off his feet a little bit, use that there, have some of the younger guys try out left field as well, use your corner in outfield spots, and you're setting up for a pretty darn good rotation there, and something that, like I said, if they hit their ceiling, will outperform people's expectations, but won't be necessarily as won't be as bad, or in reality probably will be closer to the middle of the pack. But big thing we need Kris Bryant. His importance to the Rockies cannot be understated this year. He is a key part of the foundation. He is a key piece to this Rockies team. He has to be in the lineup as much as possible. The Rockies are a much better team with Kris Bryant in the lineup. And we've only seen him for a little bit of time, but we do know that he makes that big of an impact. Nicholas Delvo's joining late. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news to tell you this, Nicholas, but we're wrapping things up for the Locked On Rockies podcast today. Thank you so much for tuning in. You can check out the full episode on YouTube or on your favorite streaming service. We are bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. That's what we do. We talk Colorado Rockies every day, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week here on the Locked On Rockies podcast, free and streaming on your favorite streaming service and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the best live chat in all of Locked On. Yeah, I'm calling it. I'm saying it right here. I'm calling out everyone else. We got the best live chatters out there. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Why don't you go make Locked On Fantasy Baseball your second listen of the day, or you can check out the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, Locked On Nuggets, or Locked On Buffs podcasts to stay up to date with all things Colorado sports. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.